Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another interview on the Southern Cross Combat channel. I'm your host, Joel Rasmussen, and today we're talking to an absolute staple of the show, as we referenced right at the start of the interview. I'm talking to Mr. Justin Van Heerden. He will fight George Mangos for the second time at Eternal 101. He didn't fight him the first time at Eternal 101 because there's only going to be one Eternal 101. They don't do multiple of those. But this is the second time these two will face off. Justin Van Heerden, an absolute staple of the featherweight division in Australia. Always good to talk to Justin. As always, it's a great chat, but in particular, he really opens up here. And he really talks about some in-depth personal things, some real struggles. He talks about not being able to see his daughter since December 2023, which I won't completely go over that here. That's something that you can see he talks about in the interview, but I always appreciate talking to Justin. He also talks about the fight and like other aspects of life as well. It's always a good chat with Justin. I always appreciate him giving me the time. It's always a pleasure to speak to the man. He fights George Mangos on Eternal 101 this weekend on the Saturday, not the Friday. The Friday show is Eternal 100. But yeah, nonetheless, here is my interview with Justin Van Heerden. G'day, I'm Joel Rasmussen for Southern Cross Combat, and ahead of his fight on Eternal 101, I'm talking to Mr. Justin Van Heerden. A little bit of a dramatic pause there for 101, just trying to bring some high energy to the interview. Justin, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, no, I like it. I like it. Let me mix it up. Put some flair in it.
I know, you know me. I try, bro. I try. How are you, Justin? It's very good to be talking to you again.
Yeah, it's good. Just adding to my all-time record of appearances on the Southern Cross Combat Show. So, it's what we do.
I'm uh I'm doing a quick Google of your name real quick just to make sure I get this number correct. So, within the year of our Lord 2025, this is fight five, Justin. I thought it was fight four. So that means we've had even more than I was expecting. What's
Exactly.
wrong with you?
I enjoy violence tremendously.
It's very evident. We're doing five fights in 2025.
Five in 2025, and it'll be the sixth or seventh in a calendar year for me. So that's pretty cool.
Jesus, bro. How is your body?
Yeah, obviously, you got to tick the boxes, man. You got to have the right things set in place. Thankfully, I have a good strength and conditioning coach in Chris Jaffrey. I've got good nutritionists. I've got all the right people around me. So you got to do, and you got to do the job. You got to do the right stuff.
Dude, I remember a time, the first time you and I spoke to each other, it was slowing down. It was one fight a year.
Mm.
It was, it's been so long. I'm waiting for something. I'm waiting for. I remember that was the first time we chatted to each other. And oh my God, dude, I actually can't believe it's been that many.
But I am the most active fighter in this whole thing for a reason.
I know, but that's such a change compared to how it was just a few short years ago.
Yeah, no, it's cool though. I'm very happy, and obviously I want to keep that rolling. So obviously got this fight with George on Eternal 101. And then obviously it's like maybe a couple months, or that's like maybe December, January, where it's like not much going on. And then we're back to it. So I plan to fight as soon as possible as I can again.
Well, let's not talk too much about that when, as you say there is something on the agenda. We have a reason for talking to each other. You
Exactly.
are fighting in one of the most anticipated fights of the year that I don't even know if how many people knew that it was like going to be a possibility. So, from your perspective, Justin, take me through this. How did this happen? How did this fight come your way?
Well, obviously I fought, against Taser, and I knew I was going to fight on Eternal 100 initially. That's what the plan was. The 100th show, they wanted me on the show. Had most of my fights on Eternal, so it made sense. And then in terms of getting an opponent, that was sort of up in the air, because they were like trying. I was meant to be fighting for the belt, but then they were like trying to see what was going to happen between Cop Hamill and Keithion, and then that fight, and then there was like all these sort of factors, and they were still trying to get me a fight for Eternal 100. And then initially they were like, "Oh, look, we don't think either of those guys are going to be able to make a turnaround because they're both the way they fight, they cop some damage." So it's like they weren't sure about the turnaround. for Eternal 100. So they were sort of looking at some other options. And name that first got floated to me was Dim Skillies at a catchweight because he's a fat cunt and can't make featherweight. And I was like, and they were like, we can do that in a fight like that for Eternal 100 because obviously he's a exciting fighter, exciting person to watch. So it was like we could do a fight like that. It'd be at a catch weight. It doesn't affect anything else. Blah blah blah. And I was like, yeah, whatever. We'll see what happens. And then I think Cam was sort of looking at a few different options because he was still trying to put something together for me at featherweight. And then probably will be maybe 2 weeks ago or something like that on the Friday afternoon. I'm like just on my way home and my phone rings while I was driving in the car and it's Joe and he's like, I answer the phone. He's like, what's a fight that you've always wanted back? And I was like, George. And he goes, yep, it's on. And I was like, cool. So then I knew that I was fighting George. Um, and then it kind of, I was surprised that they offered it because the last I'd heard about anything, Cam wasn't going to have George back on at all after, the whole situation with he was in the Grand Prix, then he left. And so I was like surprised in that for a sec as well, especially because um, it wasn't long ago that that was something that was sort of still a thing. But then, looking at it, it's the biggest fight you can make in Australian MMA. And, I guess Cam put his promoter hat fully on and was like, I want this fight. Because I do know that George was definitely looking for a fight. And I know that he was looking for a fight anywhere, but I imagine, there wouldn't be too many people lining up to fight him. Um, I did get contacted by a promoter of another show, but obviously because I was already obligated to fight for Eternal, we like couldn't do that. But I imagine the fight that they were going to offer was going to be George anyway. Um, but yeah, I'm stoked that it's come together. I'm stoked that it's happening on Eternal. I'm stoked that it's happening on a big weekend where it's a double show on Fight Pass, like all that sort of stuff. The story behind it, the occasion of it all. Um, yeah, it's cool. It's exciting times.
You're a, just a chill guy, a laid back guy. I know you kind of said it, like you mentioned it there about, you got the phone call from Joe, but like you and I have spoken after fights before. You've told me I would like to fight this guy, I'd like to do this. And this fight was something you wanted, but I think you had fully said to me before, like, but I'm not going to get that back. Like, it's just not going to happen. It is now happening. How was it when you found out you were getting this opportunity to fight George again?
Yeah, well, obviously at the time, that it didn't look like that was going to be a thing because obviously he was on such a tear after he fought me, and then obviously went on Contender Series, and I think we all were kind of like, pretty sort of set that we were all pretty confident that George was going to go out there and perform. Unfortunately, he didn't get the result because of just the fight just went that way. It was just that the way the guys approached the fight, and unfortunately, it didn't work out for either guy. So even the dude that won. So I mean, what can you do? It's like a frustrating thing, but then you go back to the drawing board. But it's not like even when that happened, I was sitting there thinking, oh yeah, we could fight because I was like, um, that was really wasn't even on like the radar, to be honest. But when Joe called me and said that George was offered, well, normally what happens is like Joe called me and be like, hey, we got this fight, blah blah. How do you feel about it? And then I'll just be like, yeah, let's go. And then Joe will be like, oh, yeah, sweet. And then he'll go back to whoever and be like, yeah, cool, we're in. But when he called me for this, he was like, um, well, it's on. They offered it to us. I already said yes, and they're just gone. I think they've already said yes as well, so it's happening. And I was like, yes, sweet. So, and that's cool because like, um, the storyline's kind of done a flip now, right? When I fought George, he had everything to gain. I had everything to lose. He was successful and got the result. Now it's kind of like it's done a flip, right? He's coming off a loss, but it was, a fight that arguably he was the one that was trying to actually, go out there and put his opponent away. His opponent was just fighting to sort of not to lose, as they say. So in my mind, he's not really lost any momentum or any hype or anything like that. And obviously he's, just fought on contenders. So he's in a pretty good position. So it's kind of like it's done a bit of a flip, right? It's like everything that he has, I have the ability to take. So it's kind of like yeah, it's just funny how that works out. Just adds to the story. Um, but no, I was when I found out and then I knew it was confirmed. I was very happy. I was very happy. It's been a long time that I've actually like, you get a fight where you kind of are like, holy fuck, I'm so excited for this. Like I actually like you get excited for fights, but I mean where you're like, I need this. Like I want this back and I want this fight. So yeah, I'm stoked. I'm looking forward to it.
Is this redemption?
I think so. I mean, I could like I think I'm very confident that this is an opportunity for me to to go out there and redeem myself and show that, you know, up until the last 30 seconds of that third round, what we saw in that cage is uh, what will what will happen, but except this time without the blunders, without the mistakes, without the I guess without the lapse, I guess in there, which is is sort of the fault on my end that then allowed him to sort of have an opportunity, which he certainly capitalized on and was able to sort of do his best work and then find a finish. So it's exciting for me, man. I get to come in there and run it back and sort of look to be the one that walks out there with his hand raised this time and kind of, get that one back. And I haven't lost a rematch. I'm undefeated in rematches. So I plan to add to that. I plan to go out there and step in the cage with, a very dangerous guy, um, a very motivated guy, and, certainly someone who's obviously going to come to, from the opening bell, kind of come forward and look to put me away. So that's exciting, man. I feel like those are the fights I perform the best in when there's that aspect of, I guess, threat and danger. I think that's when I excel. If you look at my fights with like Muhammad Alavi, you look at my fights with Phil Pot, you look at my fights with Diego Pereira, like those are the fights where I kind of come out and do my best work. So um, obviously, the big factor in going into this fight is, you know, you're stepping in there this time with a revitalized, refocused, refocused and like sort of different completely different Justin. Like you're not stepping in there with a guy that was just on autopilot, like the lights were on and no one was home. You know, there's no out of cage factors that are factoring in. There's nothing that's sort of bleeding into this. It's just me stepping in there with a competitive urge to beat this guy and him looking to do the same, and it's going to produce fireworks on the night.
You mentioned that there. I'd be amiss if I didn't ask. What was going on? Was there something going on outside of the cage, in your
Um,
first fight with him?
yeah, so that leading into that year, so obviously I just fought a couple of weeks before against Michael Barber in New Zealand, and even that fight, you look at my first fight and then you look at that fight with Barber, like you could see it was just like a completely different sort of thing. It's like night and day. That was maybe I think that was like 2 months after or 3 months after my daughter was taken away from me and she was taken to Queensland. So, and I'd just been experiencing that and processing that. So, really, should I have been in the cage at all? Probably not. But, you know, I sort of kind of was trying to approach it the same way of like, this is something I could put all my energy into to distract myself from what was happening outside of the cage. But obviously, that's like a temporary band-aid on a thing that just isn't going to fix it or isn't going to allow you to do that. And then it's going to factor in that way. And then look what happened. You go from being on a six-fight win streak, the number one pound fighter in the country. You lose a fight, and you're like right there. You're like right at the door, and then you lose that crucial fight. So it was certainly a a shock to the system in a way to kind of be like, holy fuck. But, you know, I've always been someone that like grows from the losses and picks myself up and then gets back to doing my best work. So, yeah, look at me now. Now I get a chance at redemption and I'm looking forward to being the one that has his hand raised on the night and takes everything from George.
Something like that is obviously a very heavy topic and a very personal topic. You made a post about it on your social media a couple months ago. I brought it up to you the last time we spoke, but we didn't really go into details. Uh, is it all right if we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, 100%.
How are you?
Well, I mean, it's like it doesn't go like like which I don't want to say like it gets easier. It definitely doesn't, but in a sense, the day to day stuff and that, you kind of that does. like obviously it's still a shitty thing and it's a shitty situation, but like I'm definitely kind of just refocused on approaching every day a bit differently because I'm kind of in my mind, I'm still having to, I've still got to go out there and carry myself properly and do, keep living and keep doing the right stuff because ultimately I'm still trying to, set an example because regardless, all this stuff's going to be around forever. It's all, all these fights, all these interviews, all that sort of stuff. So I want to be able to make sure that I'm, showing that you can just pursue the stuff that you're passionate about. You can do that and set that example because that's sort of the main thing that I want to do because that's probably my biggest goal in this whole thing outside of maybe one or two personal things is just to sort of be an example for her and make her proud.
You started off the interview, making a reference about extending the lead as the most interviews on Southern Cross Combat. You and I have been talking to each other for a long time, for many years now. Maybe a handful of those interviews, we don't talk about your daughter. It's something that you talk about a lot. I remember after your win in Perth, you dedicated the fight to her. I know kind of how important she is to you. Have you had a chance to see her?
No, for a brief period, I was, like over like video chats and that for a brief period, uh, but then nah. So it's like, yeah, it's, but it's one of those things now where I'm kind of like looking at it through a different lens and just being like, I can sit here and just mope around every day and just allow it to be something that just kind of like controls the rest of my life and just kind of like bleeds into everything else. Or I can approach my life in a different way and kind of, focus on the other aspects of my life and the other great parts of my life. And then just know that, you know, one day I am going to see her again. So, that's sort of just where I'm at now, which is like a much better sort of place for me across the board, especially mentally.
Are there any steps being taken towards you seeing her again?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. But it's a slow process. Like yeah, it's I'm sure, and I'm sure there's people that might be listening to this that probably have, had to sort of experience sort of similar things or probably have seen sort of similar things and probably understand that as well. It's a very slow process.
Um, and I think the final one on this, I appreciate you talking to me about it. Kind of like a clarifying one. I mentioned before about, you and I talk about your daughter a lot in interviews. But for people who don't know you, for people who don't know the situation, I'm not fully aware of the situation. Hearing someone say they got their child taken away from them can be can lead to a lot of assumptions and a lot of damning things and a lot of, well, maybe he did this or this happened. Uh, can you share any light of like why that would have happened or what happened from your perspective?
Just a selfish, vindictive behavior from another adult that's meant to be like caring for the smallest, most beautiful, precious human being on earth. That's like your daughter and giving her the best aspect of life. But then, choosing not to do that and be, yeah. I honestly like, I would want to answer that with like a better way that I don't. That's what it's boiled down to. That's like just what it is. I mean, yeah, that's kind of how it sort of is. I just came home one day and my kid was no longer there, and I'm being told I can't see her, and that's it. So that's just kind of where you're at, just left with nothing, no answers, nothing.
Uh, just yet again to clarify to the people listening, from a legal perspective, everyone's in the clear.
Oh
Or
yeah,
sorry, everyone, you are in the clear.
yeah. There's nothing like that. Yeah, no,
Cool. Just want to, because people not listening who don't know, I don't want anyone to get the wrong ideas.
no. I
Uh,
appreciate that.
no, I appreciate you talking to me about it. Um, to go from something like that to talking back about fighting, kind of really puts everything in perspective. It feels weird to now talk about fighting because you're going through that. That is something that's so much bigger. And maybe that's how you felt in the cage against Barber and how you felt against George the first time.
Yeah, well, it was definitely, yeah, it was kind of like, it was weird. And I'm not, that's definitely not like a, a way to sort of look at it and go like, oh, the end of the day, a fight is still between two people and still requires two people to do the right thing. A series of events of someone doing the right things has to still happen for there to be an outcome. So certainly, George was able to do that. So that's definitely, something that was sort of obviously led to the outcome of the fight. But yeah, but definitely like in being in the cage, it was like a weird out of body type experience. Like, you know, from like I'm so because I'm so calm when I'm in there and so sort of thing. I hear the crowd, I hear hit the other corner, I hear my corner, I hear the ref, like I hear everything sort of in there. But it was like almost like a weird out of body experience where it was just kind of like white noise and things just weren't like I'd hear things but they just weren't registering. It was kind of like, yeah, and then I was literally just going through the motions. It was kind of like, yeah, it's super, super weird. And then, in between rounds, Colby and that would be saying stuff to me and it would just be like, oh yeah. And then I was like, yeah, my brain was just like not there. But then in saying that, my body was still going out there and just doing its thing pretty much, which was in looking back in hindsight, like when I watched it, obviously, because I knew, you obviously all know like the result of the fight and how it ended. But then when I watched the fight back, I was actually surprised at the success that I had before that. And I was like, because in my mind, it was all just a blur. So I was like, I wasn't even sure what was happening round around until I watched it back. But then obviously watching it back, there was plenty of good things to still take out of it, regardless. And certainly I was up on the scorecards 3-0 up until that doesn't matter when the fight gets stopped. So, but there's in saying that there's still good things to take out of it. So, which is surprising considering how the fight played out for me being in there.
It's funny how things become like recontextualized. I remember talking to Jarrett after his win that night, but I spoke to him after your fight. I didn't grab him right away because he wanted to watch your fight. And I just remember him saying to me, like, I can't even feel happy for myself because I know how much Justin needed that win.
Mm,
It's funny how everything becomes recontextualized. You mentioned before about you've never lost a rematch. I know all the times we've spoken to each other, Justin, I think I've spoken to you before well, this is now the third rematch I'm talking to you before. But the extra funny thing about that is I've never spoken to you heading into a rematch where you're not coming off a win.
mm,
Against Barber, you won the first fight, and against Rod, the third time, you won the middle fight. You won the second fight. And I didn't talk to you before the second Rod fight because I wasn't in the scene yet.
yeah,
So although this isn't the first rematch I've spoken to you about, this is the first rematch I've spoken to you about where you are the guy coming in to even the score.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What does that feel like? What are the emotions heading into that?
It's like a feeling of like weightlessness and like there's definitely no pressure because things didn't go your way the first time, so you're not like you don't have like this sense of like, oh, I'm gonna go out there and do the same thing. Um, that's the sort of feeling I had when I went in against Barber and when I went in against Rod for that third fight because obviously the second fight I knocked him out, so it's kind of like there was a little bit more pressure or there's a little bit more of that. You're kind of like, oh, I just did this. I should just do it again. Like I should just be able to go out there and do it again. Um, but now it's kind of like, yeah, it's that same feeling of like the pressure's not on me. All the pressure's on George. Like George is the one that has to, gonna have all these eyes on him and all that sort of stuff. So, uh, and that's sort of the stuff that the moments where you got to try and like thrive and do your best work. But for me, it's kind of like no pressure. I've just got to show up and do what I do, to show up and be the best possible version of myself. Show up, use my full skill set, do what I know I can do, and the cards will fall how they're meant to fall. And more often than not, that usually means that my hand gets raised and I put on my best performances.
Uh, you kind of touched on it earlier. You've given my thoughts kind of on the first fight, but what were your thoughts on? I'm assuming in general in your life you've gone back and watched that. You mentioned earlier going back and watching it, but maybe ahead of this one you've rewatched it again. I don't know. What are your thoughts on him in your first fight with him?
Um, Certainly, like I sort of knew coming into that fight with him that it was going to be. game, super dangerous, and he was going to try and like go for it, and try and get me out of there, which we certainly did. Like, and then ultimately, was able to sort of throw that together. So, but I sort of like already knew that, and George and I were kind of like we fought on cards together, and he'd come down to freestyle, and obviously I got saw him sort of move around like in the sparring sessions and stuff like that. Previous to that, so I knew that he was like he's a talented sort of fighter, and he was going to come in and be a sort of a tricky puzzle to solve, and someone that you kind of have to be on point with. And certainly since then he's had a bunch more fights, and he's sort of developed and I guess added to the tool belt a bit, and gotten better as a across the board. So yeah, it's kind of looking at that fight. That's what I sort of knew that it was going to be like a fight where there's danger. It's going to be a fight where you had to kind of be on point. Uh, and I certainly expect that again. So, but I feel like I was able to showcase that you know, there's even in that first fight, like I said, there's still factors where I was able to showcase like, my skill set and show, the dangers that I present to sort of anyone. Um, and I feel like going into this fight, that's now that we've both been in there with each other and been able to sort of see the fights that we've had since then. I'm sure he's, paid attention to those fights. I've certainly paid attention to his fights. And I'm sure that, it's the same again. Like we both know we're stepping in there with someone who's dangerous. We're both stepping in with someone that's well rounded, and we both have the ability to sort of finish this fight at any moment. So I feel like it's that, but it's amplified based on the occasion, based on how hyped this fight is. I feel like now it's the other way. Like I said, it's the other way around. It's for all the marbles again, but it's me. It's me with the opportunity to take it away from George, and not the other way.
Do you think, obviously, outside of the outcome, you mentioned earlier, you were up 3 rounds, like it was a dominant but also classic Justin Van Heerden performance. Uh, do you see this fight playing out any differently?
Um, no, in my mind, I see myself going out there and just being completely dominant and showcasing that I'm you know I'm the person that I know I am when I step in there, and especially when like I said, when I know I have a dangerous opponent in front of me. So I feel like I'm going to rise to the occasion, go out there and put on a vintage performance that people are used to seeing from me, and go out there and put George away. That's the plan.
What are your thoughts on his performance on Dana White's Contender Series?
Just like I sort of touched on, man, it's just a frustrating sort of fight to be in where you're going out there and trying to do the thing, and especially on an occasion like that where you kind of want to be exciting and kind of want to put a stamp on things, and then you got someone in front of you who's just like not playing the game, I guess. But also in saying that, it's like, well, you know, don't get put in those positions. But that's obviously easier said than done sometimes. Like I guess Radley just didn't want to fight. He just didn't want to be there. He probably or just didn't want to lose, really. He cared more about keeping the O on his record. I think he's undefeated. I can't remember, but like I think he just wanted to keep that the way it is instead of actually go out there and impressing the big wigs and trying to get a shot in the world stage, which is frustrating for George. And obviously watching it, it was kind of like, fuck man, this dude's actually trying to fight and win, but his opponent's not letting him do that. But then you've got to look at it from there's two sides to that coin. He was able to put you on your back and get a hold of you, and you weren't really, for the most part, able to do anything about it. That's also something that has to be a factor that you look at. But ultimately, I just felt frustrated watching it for him because like I said, we were all kind of, everyone, I guess, on this side of the world was kind of expecting that he was going to go out there and do his thing. And it's just shitty that he didn't have a good dance partner.
I feel like you're in a bit of a similar situation. I don't know if you're in the situation. I feel like it is a similar situation to your last opponent and your last fight, Taser, in that Taser loses to Seb. Seb utilizes grappling very well against him. He can't, and then the next fight he takes is you, a guy who uses grappling incredibly effectively. We talked about it in that fight, like before that last fight. George struggled against the grappling against Radley, comes back and fights you, a guy who has got fantastic grappling. I mean this question with all the respect to George. I meant it when I asked the same question to you about Taser. Were you surprised that they took this fight?
I was because in my mind, not for that reason. I was because he's in a position, like I said, we spoke about the position that he's in, coming off contenders and whatever. I imagine that if, you know, from his team and his management and everyone like that, in my mind, that you'd want to pick a matchup that's, more favorable, I guess, because you just got to go out there and get a win and hopefully get an exciting performance or whatever. And I imagine that, you're back to sort of just where you were, and you can wipe that fight with Bradley off you, wipe that off, and then you're back to sort of where you were meant to be or where you were. So I was surprised in that sense because in my mind, I'm the riskiest fight you could take. But also in saying that, it kind of you got to give credit where credit's due, and then full respect to him for doing that because he's taken a fight with definitely the most dangerous person to fight for him, or well, for anyone, but for him, especially in this position. And he certainly was like, fuck it, let's do it. Just like I was like, let's do it. Because I definitely know that he was struggling to get a fight. So, or to get something to happen. So, yeah, so surprised, but, you know, thankful for the opportunity that I get to run it back with him.
Uh, I apologize if this question doesn't fully make sense. I think this is more of an analytical question, and it may be hard for you to be analytical when you're one of the people who are fighting. But I almost, in a way, understand him taking that fight if he's trying to prove to the UFC that if he, in his head, if he's trying to prove to the UFC, I can fight a grappler and I can beat a grappler. But do you think he would be trying to just not get taken down by you, or do you think he's going to try to beat you in the grapple?
Um, well, I guess I gotta be if I'm gonna be analytical about this, I gotta look at it for what it is. He got the sub in the first fight, so in my mind, I guess that for me, from my perspective, that then like kind of allows you to sort of look at it from that, with through glasses like that and go, okay, I got the submission last time. Like I don't care if that's going to be a factor in the fight. Like if we're going to end up in the grappling or in the wrestling or whatever, like I feel like I can get the result. So I certainly think that he's going to be more than happy to try and mix it up in that area, or even try and potentially take it there um, to try and do that. Maybe I mean I could see that being a thing because but in my mind, uh, potentially, I think I could see that being a thing, but I could see it just being like, I'm going to do everything I can to stop the wrestling if and when it's presented. But, everyone's tried, but no one's been able to do that. So I, I, but I definitely wouldn't suggest actively trying to pursue that part of the fight. That's probably not the route to victory.
Changing gears a little bit, talking about a different man in the featherweight division. We mentioned him before, Taser Malone. After the win, you guys have had like a little bit of back and forth on the socials. What's going on with you and Taser?
Well, I didn't just like the guy, and I but obviously he had his little moment at the weigh-in and had all his little antics and stuff. So now I just got to clown you. I'm real petty, bro, and I'm like an elephant. I don't forget shit. So I'm just gonna from now until eternity, I'm gonna clown him the same way I do with Alan, the same way I do, with anyone that's rubbed me that way. Pause. That's weird. Yeah. Nah, I'm just he's like he's got a I don't know. Bro, it needs to be. I thought he got humbled by the result, but I was wrong. So yeah, I feel like I got to clown him a bit more. And if the opportunity is there for me to do that, I will certainly keep doing it.
And Justin, you're wearing a absolutely beautiful "Let's Fighting Love" uh, t-shirt. One of the best episodes of South Park.
Easily.
What is your favorite episode of South Park?
Well, funny you should ask me that, Joel, because Sophia and I have been fucking doing a bit of a deep dive on the old South Park
Very
recently and just
nice.
been going crazy with that. My favorite episode was the Make Love Not Warcraft episode. But now, in this recent rewatch and deep dive, actually the other night we watched an episode, the Hobbit episode. I don't know if you've seen that one.
That is my favorite episode of South Park.
That is
The
now
ret
my favorite
the return
episode.
of the Lord of the Rings to the Two Towers.
Yeah, it is hilarious. So I'm like very much in my bag at the moment with South Park and going through rewatching some of the stuff and seeing some episodes that I hadn't seen. But yeah, that's probably the favorite at the moment.
No way we have the same favorite episode of South Park. That's actually so funny.
If you were right here, right now, I'd make out with you.
Dude, when they go to the next town over,
Hey, what are you guys doing? We're playing Harry Potter. Ha! Fags!
that's my favorite quote from any South Park. Those them walking past is so funny.
It's quality. It is elite. There's a few episodes I've stumbled upon recently that are like absolute gems, like really good.
What sparked this rewatch? Has Sophia, like, has she seen South Park before?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I don't know. I think it was us, it was me. You I think we watched the Make Love Not Warcraft episode because I don't shut up about it. And then I think that kind of just sparked like a renaissance of South Park.
It's very good. That is very good. And of course, the classic always ask, what are you playing at the moment? Are you playing anything at the moment?
Not at the moment, man. I haven't been gaming. That's not true. Uh, played Oblivion the other day for like a solid 3 hours. But other than that, not really. Yeah.
Why? What brought you back to Oblivion?
Um, I don't know. It's like one of those random, you gotta do like a same with Skyrim here. You do like a quick little play through again, like the annual sort of playthrough, I guess. It was kind of maybe a bit of that, but no, I haven't really been gaming. The most gaming I've been doing is just been occasionally playing this board game called Nemesis, which is the greatest board game ever invented. Um, it's sort of based off the Alien series, movie, successful franchise series. It's very cool. It's a role playing strategy, survival horror co-op, but also not type game. It's very cool.
Number of
I
players,
mean,
one to five.
yeah, the average game, like an average game, is like 5, 6 hours.
Jesus. Are
It's full on.
are you doing that in one sitting?
Yeah, yeah. Like we played last weekend, I think again. We played last Sunday and we played from 5 p.m. to like 11:30.
Who's playing? Who's also playing Nemesis?
Uh, just the homies, and Sophia's like a gun at it as well. Like she plays as well. And the last game we played, because like how it works, there's like a collective mission objective that you may choose to pursue or not. And then you also get given like your own two individual objectives, which more often than not, one of them is like, you're a completely different objective to the main objective, or it's like complete the main objective or make sure the objective isn't completed so you can be, a piece of shit and sabotage everyone. But
Yo, you're playing
it's
Among Us.
it's not really like a game where you win or lose. It's more so you're just playing out and the story plays out and it's just different factors every time. But it's like really in-depth and fun and crazy.
Uh, we were talking just before, off camera before we started. The in-laws have been in town. Do you make a good impression?
Far as I've heard, yes. Apparently, yeah, I'm like the man. So that's good. That's good.
How what do they make of the fighting? You know, are they like, who is this man that my daughter has started dating and why is he such a terrible, violent man?
Um, I think it's the opposite. I think everyone's more often than not, it's just people are surprised because I guess outside of when you actually see me in there for the 15, 25 minutes, I'm definitely not radiating the things that you would think makes up someone who steps into a cage. That's yeah, for sure. Sophia clowns me all the time for it because I definitely don't come across that way.
It's always great to talk to you, my friend Justin. I really do appreciate you giving me the time. It's always awesome to see you fight. Uh, between now and fight day, what does the rest of life look like?
Uh, well, tomorrow back in the gym, and then it's the last week of camp. So I got last 3 hard sessions this week. Like, I've got my meat grinder, my lactic session, my spider session, and then camp's done. And then, we start water loading, and then it's just the fight week vibes of just making sure that we're cutting weight. That's all gone smoothly. The body does a bit of a reset, and then it's get down to the Gold Coast and just soak up a massive weekend, which will be cool. Like obviously, with Eternal 100 being on as well, then obviously fighting on 101. And then I believe on the Sunday there's like an awards thing that they're doing. So and then yeah, so it's going to be some big cool weekend for MMA, and then obviously all the usual antics of fight week. The weight cut vibes, the food sort of stuff, the all that sort of stuff. Just spending time. Fight trips, you can't beat a fight trip. So like fight trips are just cool. So I'm looking forward to soaking that all in. But between now and then, man, just ticking off these last couple of boxes, finishing camp and then putting the focus on making sure that we, show up to the Southport Sharks Club on the Friday. We make weight, we fucking, tick all those boxes, we be professional, and then we get in there and we put on a exciting, uh, brilliant performance against George Mangos, and we get that one back and get our hand raised, and then just kick back for the rest of the year and just soak up some rest and relaxation and food and yeah, all the fun stuff.
Will you get a chance? I mean, I assume you wouldn't be there in person. That'd be nuts if you were there in person. To like watch Eternal 100?
I'm going, yeah, I'll definitely make an appearance because what happened is, I guess, for some of the Eternal alumni that have got a few fights under their belt, we've actually got like contacted by Eternal and they've like invited you to come along, and it's like a whole special thing. So it's gonna be cool. I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, I maybe just in that question there, I maybe have misunderstood when the weigh-in time was. Yeah, you had already made weight by then, so you'd be fine.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'll pop. Obviously, I mean, I might not be there for like I guess the whole thing.
Hours.
Yeah, I've still got like a job to do the next night, and you need that quality R&R post weigh-ins with good food and rehydration, and just quality time with Sophia while we're in the Gold Coast. I still need still need and want that more than anything. So make an appearance, but definitely not going to be there for like 5 6 hours.
I quickly thought of last two. So sorry, I was wrapping up there, but quickly two more on the fight. You've
Sounds good.
mentioned throughout the interview, actually it's last three. You mentioned throughout the interview that George kind of has what you want now. The roles are a little bit reversed. Two things. One, a second win here for George. Do you think he goes straight back to the UFC?
Uh, in my opinion, yeah, I think he'd. I mean, at the very least, you think that that puts him back in place for like contenders or something. But even though that probably not going to be till late next year, so I doubt you want to sit around till then. Although he can afford to if he had to, but because he doesn't have to like then do anything else. But in my opinion, it puts him potentially in with a chance to fight on that Sydney card that they're doing. So yeah, I certainly think so.
And then how does it feel then to be like the roadblock for him on his way to the UFC?
Um, Very, very good. I can't lie. Like obviously, I really like George and got a lot of respect for him. And there's no like, it's not like one of those fights like where I said like where it was with like a taser or like a Phil pot where there was like that malice and you were like just dislike the dude. Like I really like him, and we got like there's like a mutual sort of respect there, and I definitely don't have any sort of qualms with him outside of that. But I am certainly going to show up to the Southport Sharks on November 15th, and I'm going to stop any plans that he has of getting the result against me and moving on to the next thing.
And finally, for me, a real peek behind the curtain here. You have a hard out at 7:45. What's happening at 7:45?
Uh, Quality time, my friend. Quality undisturbed time with the love of my life.
Very nice. Well, I will not be the man to come between that. Justin, I really thank you for the time. It is always a pleasure to speak with you. Best of luck in the fight. Safe travels up there. Safe travels. Are you staying for the awards night afterwards?
I am, yes. Yeah, I don't fly back till 6 a.m. on a Monday morning.
Very nice. Well, I'll see you up there, obviously, and I'll see you at the awards night. And safe travels there, safe travels home. Thank you so much.
Likewise, always good to chat, man. Thank you.